Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Casio Waveceptor WVA-M640D-1ACR. Oh, Casio, you're trying to kill me already. But anyways, it's a very interesting watch despite having a very uninteresting name, and I want to thank very much my buddy Josh for sending this guy along. It's really neat. I probably wouldn't have gotten a chance otherwise, so thank you very much. He's got a blog, Jody Win Junk. Check him out. Let's do a little bit of a size comparison first. Actually, first off, let's do a little bit of size measurement. I'm going to use metric here because that's the standard. The lug-to-lug distance here is 45 millimeters, which is relatively small. It doesn't actually have a crown, so the distance across it is also 45. The face itself looks to be about 32, and there's not really a lug width on this guy because, unfortunately, there aren't really lugs. We'll come back to that one later, but that gives you a sense of the overall dimensionality of it. Size comparison-wise, here it is against the Casio F108 and the F91W, so two other relatively value-focused Casio watches here. Right here is the Citizen BM, 8180, which is another really good, inexpensive quartz watch. Well, okay, not inexpensive, but way less expensive than some other watches, like, for instance, the Omega Planet Ocean. This is a very, very expensive watch that, well, yeah. So anyways, but it's a lot bigger nonetheless. And then thickness-wise, oh, that was the other thing I should probably measure here. This comes in just a little bit over a centimeter, maybe a centimeter, 1.2 centimeters, something along those lines. So it's not a big watch, which is something I appreciate deeply. So there's the size comparison. Let's just go actually on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular little wristwatch here. First off, on the good side, the wrist, the bracelet, that is, adjustment is beautiful. I'm going to see if I can do this, live on camera because, well, basically, you see, you've got these little holes right there in the middle of the link, and if you take a spring bar tool, you slide them in there, and then you just kind of rotate a little bit. Suddenly, that makes this little, here we go. Show it to you this way. When you put this in here, there we go. You can see it moves these little, the studs, the grabbers. I don't even know what to call those little affairs. But either way, it moves them out of position, which is nice. And then when you rotate the other direction, it puts them back into position. Bracelet is back on there. This makes for a super, super freaking easy bracelet adjustment. Oh my God, is this straightforward. And I appreciated that very much. That's nice. Next thing, this is using a quartz watch movement. It is not mechanical. It is using quartz crystals in there to synchronize the time, which means it's durable, it's practical, it's accurate. And it is indeed very accurate. And it is also, by the way, radio controlled. The little Wave-Ceptor thing right there indicates that this is actually listening for the radio signal from the atomic clock here in the US or from other places around the world. It says multi-band there, which implies that there are many bands it listens to, but it has good reception. It has reliably been getting updates from the atomic clock, and assuming that you're within the range of broadcasts, that means that the time on this will always be dead on freaking accurate. It will also be a perpetual calendar, by the way, so every month, no matter whether it's a 30, a 31, a 28-day month, it will get the date again and correct itself, so that's really excellent. And it also, by the way, includes a easy time zone adjust. So if you are, for instance, in New York and you fly back to California, you can very easily change which time zone you're in so you don't lose the accuracy. You just suddenly move this back here, and the hour hand moves independently. That's just great. Next thing, this is a very durable watch. My buddy Josh has worn this on a construction site regularly, and it is still in great shape. I wore it around. It's fine. It's quartz. There's not that much you can damage with it. That's really good. And there's actually 100 meters worth of water resistance in this little guy here. Let's see, I think it says that in there someplace. But either way, it is water resistant for 10 bar right there. And that's great. That means you don't have to worry about water at all. 10 bar does pretty much everything you need. Next thing, lightweight. This watch is, well, lightweight, as the name lightweight might imply. when I use it in run-up to a point in a review. This comes in at 2.7 ounces, as configured for my relatively dainty wrists, compared to, for instance, 6.93 ounces for your Omega Planet Ocean. That is a very welcome change, so I appreciate that very much. Another thing that you'll notice is the Tough Solar moniker on here, because this is a solar-powered watch. Behind the dial here is a solar panel, which means that this guy will charge itself reliably by just basically setting it by a window, and you can see that right now its battery state is high. That is one advantage to having this guy, the analog digital display on there, is, on this, you just kind of have to assume that the battery's good unless it's, well, not good, whereas here you can really check for yourself. So that's great. Also has a power conservation mode, or if you keep it covered or in the dark for several hours at a go. Actually, I don't know what the cutoff is exactly, but it'll stop ticking along, and then when you give it light again, it will, fire back up, or when you hit a button. So that's really excellent. And so if you keep this guy by a window, it will run forever and ever and ever, which is really good. Next thing I have to say, I appreciate the fact that this has a nice analog and digital dial here. Analog digital watches are actually a joy at some level. I mean, style-wise, they're not to everybody's taste, and they can certainly dress the watch down a little bit relative to your more straightforward analog things. But the thing is, having this additional display allows a bunch of functionality that might not have been there otherwise. So, for instance, you do get legible hands that are just visible at a glance, whereas sometimes a display isn't going to be visible at off angles. So that's very nice. But you also get very easily a day-date indicator. Here, let me go back. So here you've got day and date. It's Saturday the 16th right now. If you hit this button, that turns into a second hand, as well as a when the last time it received the signal, whether that happened last night or not. And then here it's giving me an alternate time zone. So right now I've got it actually, right now I've got the alternate time zone equaling my time zone. But still, nonetheless, you can put in another time zone here and keep a track of, what time it is in Johannesburg or something like that. So that's good, and that's something that the Analog Digi does for you. It also gives you a couple of other ancillary, there we go, features. So you can do world times. Again, you can do the alarm. You can do several alarms. You can do a stopwatch. You can do a timer to time your tea properly, etc. All of those things are very, very nice things, and I appreciate that very much, because it just gives a little bit more functionality here. One thing, though, I have to highlight is that this watch does actually have a chemical lume. It does have lume on the hands and on the indices here. I'll charge it up with a flashlight here, and then cover it up, and you can see that actually the two hands, as well as each one of the hour indices, even the ones by the screen, are well loomed. And so even overnight, in the deep dark hours of the evening, you will still be able to read this watch even without turning on. Hold on, let me get this arranged in such a way. Even without turning on, come on now, the light. As you can see there down in the corner, there is actually a little LED light that will light the face of it, even if the lume isn't bright. So you get that redundancy there. Chemical lume works most of the time, but if you need a little bit more light, you can always just turn on the actual light, which illuminates the hand and the display, which is pretty excellent. So all of those things, to me at least, are very, very good. Is that you get real chemical lume, which is rare, and it's good chemical lume. It stays going all night long. You do get LED lighting of the face. Because it's analog digital, you get some ancillary features like an alarm, chronograph, world time, timer, day-date functionality if you'd like it, etc. You get nice solar-powered movement. It's lightweight, it's durable, it's water-resistant, and the quartz movement is great with radio control, time zone adjust, and really good reception. All of those things are just excellent to me. But to me, what is absolutely great about this watch, and the great, is the price. This is currently, right now, Saturday the 16th, it is $80 on Amazon, and that is a really, really good price. That is kind of a steal for this, because functionally, this is basically a lot like the Casio Oceanus, which is a $500 watch and is one of my very favorite watches to recommend. It has a very similar movement. It actually has some additional features there. The finishing is vastly less than the Oceanus, but look, this is a watch that is way more capable for everyday carry than pretty much every human needs. It's plenty durable, it's water resistant, it's loomed, it's got everything you could need and it's 80 bucks, and that's really, really excellent, and it's a really solid choice for that price point. Considering what you're getting, I mean, this guy is even more expensive coming out of Citizen, and this is definitely lacking some things relative. Casio just rules at value in the watch game, so to me at least, that's absolutely great. Let's talk about the bad. To me, the bad on this guy, to start with, is the fact that the bracelet on this guy is integrated into the watch itself here. There are no lugs. There is nothing like on this little Citizen here. These little lugs have a spring bar between them, which means I could swap this out for something else if I wanted to. No, on this guy, unfortunately, the plastic of the watch body, we'll come back to that later, just is molded right onto the bracelet, so you can't wear this on anything but the bracelet. It's a fine bracelet, I guess, but it's still a little frustrating on occasion. No NATO here. Speaking of that bracelet, I showed you that little quick adjust system where you can pull out a link very easily with just a small basic tool. I'm not necessarily sure I trust that in the long run, because there is always a trade-off between really easy link removal and accidental link removal. Anytime that a link is really straight, so I worry, especially given the fact that there's only these little tiny pins holding this together, I worry that this bracelet could in fact break a little bit more readily than something with an actual bar going all the way through. I'm probably being paranoid there, and it's worked fine for me, and it's worked fine for my buddy Josh, but, you know, it is what it is. Next thing, there is not actually a toolless quick adjust for the bracelet. This is something that I've grown to love on the Omega, but it's also elsewhere, where you basically have a little button that you can press, and that gives you a little additional length on the bracelet here. This makes the watch comfortable to wear pretty much always, whereas on this guy, although you can move this forward and back by exactly one, there's no way to adjust if your wrist swells or something, and that's not great. The fact that the links are very easy to add and subtract makes it a little nicer, but still, I'd like to see that coming out just throughout the lineup of watches with bracelets. Next thing, this is completely a little nitpicky here, but the finishing honestly isn't all that high standard. I mean, it's 80 bucks. That's no major shock. This isn't high-end jewelry. It's not meant to be. This is finished like an $80 Casio, but the thing is, it is finished like an $80 Casio. And so you can see here that, you know, everything has sort of that over-polished, bulbous look here. You can see here that everything underneath has these areas of just matte gray plastic, including these areas here, which honestly are the thing that I like least about this watch, aesthetically speaking. If they could have just done metal all the way down to this area, I think it would be much more attractive, but having that plastic staring you in the face isn't super stellar. And even the brushing and the contouring, it just, if you compare this to a watch that's, you know, like the Casio Oceanus, it is night and day. You can definitely tell this is not jeweled, this is just manufactured. It's fine, but it just gives it a little more of a toy-like feeling. And finally, on the toy-like side, as well as on the bad side, this watch does have substantial use of plastic in here. Is that actually a problem? Probably not. Let's be real here. But you can see here that the body of the watch is entirely plastic. And in fact, the metal that you see on the body of the watch is just an overlay on top of that plastic. So the watch is more gray plastic than it is anything else. The overlay looks good. And from across the room, on the wrist, you know what? This looks A-okay. This doesn't look, you know, incredibly cheapy. And frankly, it looks way classier than slapping one of these guys on there. But at the same time, this is a plastic watch at a very real level. And that can be something that bothers people. I get it for the budget, and it also helps with the weight 100%, but that's kind of the one place where this watch feels like a very inexpensive sort of watch. It makes it feel a little bit less serious, but that is at some very real functional level completely unimportant. Mostly the watch is very good, but anyways, all of that is the bad, is that it is substantially a plastic watch. The finishing isn't really up to high standards. There is no toolless quick adjust. I'm not necessarily sure I trust the bracelet adjustment in the longer term, and it uses an integrated bracelet, which prevents you from ever putting this on another kind of strap. The ugly front, I gotta be honest, I didn't find anything. They're not super widely available. You find them on like Amazon or some weird web store, but for the price, it's not all that risky. So honestly, it's just a great watch. So let's jump into the final conclusion, which is, by the way, that this is a great watch. Yeah. It's final conclusion. Great watch. It has an incredible feature set. It really, really does. I mean, any number of these things, the seconds, the world time, all of these kinds of things, they're just great. It has good radio control, it has solar power, great durability, solid lume, which is something that is so often lacking on lower-end watches, or value-centered watches. The chemical lume on this is actually quite good, as you can still see, even a good ways after it being illuminated there. And all of that is coming at you for a price that's way below most of your basic solar watches from other brands. I mean, what else are you getting for 80 bucks? You're doing the Casio Duro, but that doesn't have solar. That's even more poorly finished. And actually, I shouldn't beat on this guy as much for finishing because it does look pretty damn good. I mean, if I zoom in here a little bit, just looking at this, the dial is very nice. Anyways, I digress. But this is just, yeah, it's not perfectly finished and whatnot, but this is really, really freaking good. And Casio, it's just proof that Casio is and remains one of the greatest value brands in the watch world. I mean, compared to what 80 bucks buys everywhere else, it's a tour de freaking force, and it's more than enough watch for me, and it's more than enough watch for everybody. Let's be real here. This could be the last watch I ever buy and wear, and I could be just fine. Luckily it isn't, because I have a bit of a watch problem, but you know what? It's a great thing. So, you know what? It's great. Functionally, this is a Casio Oceanus with less finishing, a few more features, and 16% of the price. And so if you are after a hugely functional timepiece that's not going to break the bank, you don't mind the fact that there's some plastic and that the finishing ain't quite there, then by God, this is going to be a gem for you, and it may just intercept the waves of your heart. Anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you. Thank you again, Josh, for sharing this along. This is really a really great option. It's something I'm going to be recommending regularly, and have yourselves a good one, everybody. Bye now.